텐데 춘주 거치네서라 직관이 춘주에 가서 좀 찍려가지고 가는 거다. 무슨 판시 좀 알아. 사실 또 유튜브 찍고. 뭐 근데 춘주이 그거를 좀 빼셨다. 거치네서. 또 이제 누다다레스 근데 춘주이 그거를 그만 춘주이 진짜 대원이나 안에 농민들의 안에 또바이들의 되게 유대되야 안에 당만서 다와츠가 찍을 춘주이 뭐들 말에 다와츠가 수시야야 제도가 그나시게 또 유대되야 안에 공부해도 해라 저는 춘주를 좀 하시신 참사하시는 야지를 뭐 네 아니 지금 단지 있어 단단한 거就是现在对于针对于为的是这个자주 가리는 판지 단단해 그러니까 믿음 주고 되게 예스 지금 아주 내가 지금 좀 양샤하는데 따다 중대 되고 있는 거라 무슨 저와는 소소히 단단해 되게 예스 강점 아니 강점 내지 타는 예신 주고 그냥 제 자원하리 지역의 자원이나 수익 자원이나 가를 내가 지치고 있는 이 타다데 저랑 이상한 식으로 yes.
So then we'll move on with the text itself. We're now going to explore the perfection of perseverance. So the 29th was, if the armor of unflinching perseverance is worn, knowledge of scripture and realization increases like waxing moon. All conducts become fused with good purpose, and whatever initiatives we may begin succeeds as hoped for. So then again, the classical metaphor of armor is being used here to explain the qualities of perseverance. So perseverance, we can simply understand it as the constant application of effort. And then moving on, knowledge of scripture and realization increases like waxing moon. So if the armor of unflinching perseverance is worn, if we begin to constantly apply effort in our pursuit of the study of scriptures as well as realizations, then we begin to see development and progress. And waxing moon is the kind of metaphor here used to describe development and progress along the spiritual path. So when you look at the moon from the lunar calendar, then on the first day of the month, then the moon is very small, and then as it as the month progresses, then it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger until it's a whole moon on the 15th of the lunar calendar. So this is the kind of metaphor, classical metaphor, that is being used here to describe the constant application of effort and the subsequent progress and development that we see along the spiritual path. And then all conducts become fused with good purpose, and whatever initiatives we may begin succeeds as hoped for. So then this is to kind of drive the point home that when it says all conducts become fused with good purpose, then it means that your practice becomes meaningful. Your practice becomes meaningful when you begin to constantly apply effort, put in the effort. So rather than having just the intention or just an aspiration to cultivate a practice, doesn't make sense. It doesn't begin to define the practice as a meaningful practice. You always need constant application of effort for you to achieve the desired results, as well as for the practice itself to become meaningful in the first place. Yes.
근데 전주디 장와이나 레로에 레로가 님부터라 세월 강사 아니 러친 전주 제세나지 좀 진짜네 러친 전주디 아니 제세 상식 선바도 가르치 지워이는 것도 신고비 봐라 대리치도 맞아 미 탐에 봐야 텍스 제어는 없어 당시로 해라 그나도 지가게 저번에 보면 칠레 배우지 공부하고 전주비 제지로 아니지 내가 가르쳐 보이는 즉 유튜브 채널도 중대 맞춰야 되고 전주 좀 맞으니까 까미지 제스 제가 근데 예스 상주 선바도 저기 아니 러친 전주 제세 나지 좀 상주게 아니 되게 가서 냠내 나그래서라 아니 내적인 전략을 제단이 지금 그래 아니 되게 아니 냠내 나게 예스 타바타는 그래서 처럼서 아니 되게 냠내 나셔서
Yes. So knowing this, moving on, knowing this, the bodhisattvas apply great waves of effort, which help to dispel all forms of laziness. I, a yogi, have practiced in this manner. You who aspire for liberation too should do likewise. So then, when you take on the learned ones, such as the bodhisattvas and the supreme beings, they do not suffer a moment of discouragement. They do not suffer a moment wherein they feel like giving up in their pursuit of the spiritual path, wherein they want to achieve enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. So this is the constant application of effort is the perfect antidote to what we call laziness. And for example, now when we can try to bring this back to forbearance as well. So there are moments, even with all the intentions and contemplations, that we feel like we can cultivate the practice of forbearance. But there are moments when we begin to give up, wherein there are moments when we become discouraged. So this is a lack of effort from the Buddhist point of view, because a bodhisattva and the supreme beings would never suffer such a moment of discouragement or a moment of giving up. Thus, So then, at this point, it is important from the Buddhist perspective, what do we really mean by the constant application of effort or perseverance? So then, from the Buddhist perspective, we say that perseverance is simply joyful effort. There needs to be a joy, a sense of joy in doing the thing that you want to pursue. So, from a strictly Buddhist perspective, then it is that joyful effort in achieving virtuous deeds. So then the Guru Puja prayers goes on to explain the perfection of joyful effort perfection of perseverance in this manner, and that if for the sake of each and every sentient being, if I have to keep revisiting, if I have to keep taking birth in the depths of hell, then you shouldn't have a moment of hesitation in having to take birth for the sake of all sentient beings in the depths of hell for each of these sentient beings. And then even if you are suffering in the burning pits of hell for eons and eons, then there shouldn't be a moment wherein your compassion falters, wherein your bodhicitta begins to falter. So this is the mark of the perfection of perseverance or joyful effort. Listen. So then, as we begin to define perseverance from the strictly practitioner point of view, let's say, saying that from the strictly Buddhist practitioner's point of view, then perseverance is understood to be this joyful effort in achieving or engaging in virtuous deeds. Then when we begin to define it like that, are you able to understand it, or is there any questions at this point?
I'm going to assume virtuous deeds is the pursuit for liberation. So with that said, there's a line here where it says, and whatever initiatives we begin succeeds as hoped for. What does that whatever initiatives refer to?
Which?
Verse 29.
And whatever initiatives. So worldly as well as spiritual initiatives.
Worldly and spiritual.
Yes.
Okay.
당당한 딜라 삼딜라 나서 디게 지시라. 니 가와 준줄라 가와기 차지열라. 니 이가 가와기 차지열라 디좀바. 니 가와 디 겨알라 미베 가와지 가스. 기회 차와. 기회 자발에 두발에 타르동나니 타르바 되어기. 타르바 도베기 니 라주베니 차와지 고 그러스. So then we need to differentiate between this mark of qualification is needed, because then they are hardworking criminals. They are hardworking criminals. So then somebody might really put in the effort to kind of steal something. So then in the context of spiritual practice, then it's a joyful effort aimed towards achieving by engaging virtuous deeds. So when you say virtuous deeds, then first we need to understand that virtuous deeds are aimed towards benefiting other sentient beings. And through that, then you ultimately, of course, it extends towards seeking liberation for oneself for the sake of all sentient beings. So then, as the flow of the rivers remain through ages, so the kind of effort and perseverance it takes is exactly like that. It's constant application of effort. Now we can understand it as constant application of joyful effort. There needs to be a sense of joy in what you do. Then our teachers used to, as I already talked about before in one of the sessions, our teachers used to tell us that you should not have an approach wherein you begin to say that you will seek liberation in 3 days, you will seek enlightenment in 3 days, and wherein you begin to put all your effort like in those 3 days, and then you give up after 3 days. This is not the approach one should take. It should be constant. Yes. Yes. So I think I've made clear the kind of the kind of market feature of perseverance from the practitioner's point of view. So what really is perseverance, and then we talk about how it has to have a sense of joy, a joyful effort. So I wouldn't spend too much time now discussing the importance of hard work, effort, perseverance, because I think the importance of such qualities are kind of self-evident, and we all know it from experience, the importance of such things. So maybe at this point, if there are any questions from the previous discussions, maybe I'll pick them up at this point. Oh yes, Pooja was making a point in the last session.
Before that, like about this, the joyful effort, like it helps dispel all forms of laziness.
Hmm?
And I struggle a little with that.
If you develop a sense of joy, then you
Yeah.
do not develop a sense of laziness in the
But
first
it's
place.
still susceptible to boredom.
냠낭치 제로스 엔타긴 안속이 레로기 넘버 타지디 탐지디 냠보레 라이저라 니 레로기 넘버여라 나나서 베자나도 다라마 줄란 탐제 된다는 버죠 칸삼 레지에 타남이 신투브스라 대달신나 레로 근세르게스라 랍신 준주 지세 남지 짬스 레로 근디지 세와 쳐레라다 준주지 이나야 냠낭레 샤이고라스 미나 드랑자랑자 제데나 냠낭지 지에저라 만욕기도래지 어디 디스 고츠르마데스 냠낭디야니 세이르베스 준주지 말에 레로 근셀지르라 레로 근지님보다 준주리라 이나야 boredom itself is a form of laziness, which is the absence of perseverance. So then a sense of boredom eventually gives into a sense of laziness, becomes that eventually. So if we are able to understand that if there is laziness arising in us, then it is a sign that we are lacking perseverance. Then of course, similarly we understand that boredom itself is a symptom of laziness being born. So then, understanding why we are doing something in the first place maybe is the basis on which we begin to develop joy in the act itself. And then when we begin to lose that joy, then it's important to kind of come back to that question again. And then boredom can also be overcome by this contemplation on why we are doing this in the first place. So when we do things that are joyful,
then we lose track of time. We do not really feel like we're putting in an effort. Whereas if we find no joy in the things that we are doing, then even a minute feels like an hour sometimes. So this is important.
I think there are, when you are engaged in a virtuous deed or even a worthy effort, right there can be periods of joy, and I think it's realistic to expect that joy to not be constant, that there will be times when it's not joyful, but you're still focused on the same effort. But the perseverance required to continue even when it's not joyous. So that once again it cycles back to becoming joyous, and you find that joy and purpose.
So then, we can kind of refer it back to morality too. Morality entails a sense of discipline, and that sense of discipline does not come from saying that there is some joy in adopting these things and abandoning these things. It comes from a conviction. And that conviction should come from the Buddhist perspective on a reasoned basis, wherein you take an argument to its logical conclusion, and then you become convinced because of your reasoning that one should not do these things because they are negative effects. So then we come to the importance of having to develop that conviction. The importance of developing that conviction for oneself is very important in order to develop a sense of joy. This is now very evident in the fact that we have children, and then when the parents ask the children to do their homework, then the parents have to fool them, saying that if you do this, finish your work, then I'm going to give you some treats, I'm going to take you out. So then he has that reason to finish his work, but there is no sense of joy in the way he's approaching his work. Whereas if you compare it to someone else, another child who has convinced himself that if I do my work on time, then I will progress in my studies, then I will be able to graduate on time and so forth, then he does it without any complaint, with a sense of joy that this is something good for me. And then even the fact that some parents have to try to convince the children to eat their food or eat their dinner. So if there is no sense of joy in an activity, then it takes a lot of effort for someone else to convince you to do it, some outer force to convince you to do it. You have to come to that understanding, that conviction yourself, that this is good for me. And then you begin to develop a sense of joy in what you're doing.
So it's really the intention that I come with, right? So if I do good deeds with the intention to actually benefit someone, rather than my reputation or gaining something from it, this is where the joyful effort will come.
Ni kulum de la peke rali geras. Ni tnazu chicken chuji ni deda mede ni kosa tota moto plero dela. Dela chama shame sira. Kulum tsama jingone ni chawa chik penasra chik da penwa show ni. Ani kadu ni dis kabaro ji kom show ro jiras. Chachu ni ya garchi na. Ni chezan tsuju rashi ni de show ni geras. Yes.
kalji nai na ji ne woshi sa woshi ma gar da to ani chetan ni je da ko le de la da de gi ja da kala da to yo ma da ko ko se ra de shi da ma ja na ji ga sha ko ba to ni na ga o 이 장으로 돌아가서 나오바이나 서지 내가 지금 가래 일단 예사 보고 사이다 지금 거기들 좋아지더라 이게 내가 하고 저는 뭐 이유라 해도 두두고 사이 되게 좋아지나 근데 약간 저지 말아야 돼 그래도
So then, further exploring the importance of developing that conviction yourself, then we're still using the example of a child, but but something that happened to me, wherein I heard I have a cousin who has a 6 or 7-year-old kid, and that kid we begin to talk, and then that kid began to say that today I'm so happy, and then when I asked him why, then he said, today I don't have to go to school, I'm on sick leave today. So that says that this kid does not find any joy in going to school, but the opposite is true for some kids, someone who is ambitious, someone who understands that through his studies that he can grow up to be someone who contributes to society and so forth. That kid takes great joy in going to school, and if he or she is missing school, then that kid feels sad when he misses school. So it's all about coming to that conviction, not from outside force, but like through our own reasoning, through our own understanding. Maybe Pujaji, you would like to share the story about Milarepa and Marpa?
Not this story, I don't know why I brought it up. I think it was like during, Milarepa's story, right? Like he took revenge on his family because he couldn't practice, but as a result, like he had to go through his dependence and all. So I just wanted to hear it from Geshe in more details what
그래서 아니 만족이 밀라레바기 누주지어라서 남다디나니 담보바란지 빈자마무지 세르스라 but 아마기다 납지스라 아니 아마기 납지기 친 토지는 빈자마무 세라 디세인도 좀바니 제니코 주바 쇼침부 체르스 주바치는 데 나와서 말발라서 기일한테 가도마무지 주주지어라서 디다 프랑기 더긴 좀디 가르자신 정바에 없으면 됐으라 기시마 치랑기다 줌디라라 럽솔리에 가려래죠. 어디 기시마 치랑기면서 줌디 직시에 럽솔 가려래 직분도 났어.
아니지 누구 쇼다 뭐
당번 남이 주부제 되니 봐도 좀 아니 아무도 아니디 좋아서 말
아니 형
아니 녀바디 디라나서 오라
아니 이 칼레지 저는 야 봐. 스토리 마이 멘트 저 어디다 야 봐. 제가 간지 많이 거라니까 근데 간지 제 아니 아마도 저는 간지 제네 아니 비미만 오세.
투장가 좋지.
아디네 디방 오사 제가 치스다. 라마다 얘기인데 팀. 다고 저거 제거라. 아디네 제가 그거 비슷한 사자. 근데 삼다 달라마디 디바타야지. 콜레디 캄바로야 제주라. 아직 우리가 나는 미신들 모터로 되게 있어. 개발 키고이다 사다 또다 가사칸 루브. 아들 참바로 이제 캄바야 못해서 나처럼 가진지 자 도도샤사샤사사 치시 가 다다도 마샤니 아고디까지 좀 하라고. 아디리가 그 칼을 라마들 도도 대바로 지고 있다니까. 지금 지금
교회신이든 진짜.
교회신이들한테 갑자기 소리에 가르쳐 삼다. 이게 나도 저들라마 이들 뭐 숨어서 타치는 남말이야. 아, 근데 걔는 남은 형벌하고 삼시기라. 그 남은 가르치면 저다 같은 데도 한다 이틀에도. 대신 나도. 이 직장 거래. 나 그런 게 남은 또 대바다. 남이 가서 지신 거 봐. 이 직장이지. 이디 그 전주다 전주 제라고 있나. 근데 우주로 이제 쇼트 가지 저기 지는다. 맞아. 한자디 연습이 지시는 저할 때 이거.
So then the story of Milarepa goes like this. That Milarepa was born in a very rich family in maybe medieval Tibet, 11th, 12th century Tibet, and then his father passed away, and then his uncle and his aunt began to take over all of their belongings and wealth, and as a result, the mother began to develop a sense of resentment towards the uncle and aunt, and then she advised Milarepa to go and learn black magic. So then Milarepa learned black magic, and then the mother told Milarepa that you have to take revenge on all of these town people as well as our relatives who inflicted such a great injustice upon us. So then he performed black magic for 3 continuous days, and he almost wiped out the whole town by calling hailstone on the crops, and then he did a lot of black magic basically that almost wiped out the whole town. And then it's also said that he killed like maybe 3 or 4 generations of people. So then after that, even though at that point he should have felt like a sense of achievement, now he has had his revenge. But Milarepa had a great sense of regret that he has done something terrible. And then he went around looking for a spiritual teacher who could offer him a way out of this regret and remorse. So then he heard of Marpa, who was one of the greatest translators of Tibet, Marpa Lotsawa. So then Marpa didn't give him any teachings at all. He then began to treat Milarepa very very badly, and then said that if you really want to be my student, then you have to build a 9-story fortress on your own without anyone's help. And in those day and age in the medieval centuries, there's no car, no technology at all. So then, as Milarepa began to build this 9-story fortress, then just as he was about to finish the 9th story, then Marpa used to come and used to say, "You have done it completely against my instruction. Now take all the stones where they belong, take all the bricks where they belong, take everything down." And then again instruct him to construct a 9-story fortress. So this went on for a lot of times. And eventually Marpa accepted him as his student. But in all those moments when Marpa treated him badly, when Marpa the translator asked him to rebuild the fortress again and again, Milarepa never had a moment of doubt. Milarepa had pure faith and devotion to his teacher. He never had a moment of doubt or a moment of anger towards his teacher. So this, from the Buddhist practitioner points of view, this is the biggest takeaway from Milarepa's life. That how to depend on a spiritual teacher with looking at them with pure appearances, never questioning their instructions. So once you have taken someone as your spiritual teacher, and then of course the elements of perseverance, the fact that he never complained, the elements of forbearance that took. So these structures actually survive to this day between the border of Nepal and Tibet.
기타님도 라마데나는 남자라 블랙베트 하루 이바디 모델로 지주였어. 그래서 진짜 동원 지우라지. 시간 말아니었다. 답변은 저랑 기계로 때문에 기계로 따지지. 근데 이게 때는 너무 많더라. 따지면 뭐제 대신에 담아다니는 거는 단다가 가봐도 관심을 안 갖더니 이래 상태고. 그러니까 가진 거지 정말 남한테 질러라면 치료 전화를 다 계시던 말이와 엄선들 카단 되는 법에 무사. 아무리 너무 맞아야 하시죠. 되지겠습니다. 그냥 좀 겨울로 책을 대야지 하다도 제가 있어라. 하쇼래 있네요. 달라메기 가르수메 있는 남의 카드 나한테만 있어서 다가는 양슬라와 있나. 그럼 아니 남의 실에서는 주요한 것도 가인스라. 달라마도 쳐다를 이나 마이너스 제대로 치리에나 아니 남의 가능성이 똑같이 가지고 지기 있더라.
So So then when we're talking about depending on a spiritual teacher, then it depends on what you want to study. If you want to study the sutra, then you can begin to refer to the sutra themselves, which begins to talk about the qualities that are needed in a teacher before you can depend on them as your spiritual teachers. So in that case, it's very important to first carry on the process of investigation yourself to see if this teacher really has all these qualities before you take them on as your spiritual teachers, or in Tibetan, as we say, as your lama, as your root guru. So in your study of scriptures, then scriptures or sutras, then this is the kind of general approach one takes. You begin to see if the lama really has all these qualities. That is the mark of a realized spiritual master or a spiritual guru. But from the Tantra now, it's a little bit different, and it's on the face of it, it sounds very contradictory. In Tantra, then when you take someone as your teacher, then you take a vow from that teacher. So then you have to look at that teacher and all his activities as pure appearances. Even if they appear a little bit off, you should not lose your faith and devotion to that teacher in your pursuit of Tantra.
Can you tell a little bit more about types of laziness? Or maybe about being very, very busy with what we like and what we're used to on account of what we dispose about, what takes more effort.
Yes. Tine tanda kisi maki ngazu lelo la yewa dojira. Digo la chiksuntuna ya bodosra. Tina lendo ane namjuni ngazu gomdera da bet. Lega chao kashe la bet. Nyalan shor la ore khala bet. Komshinya ba doji chanera. Tizola ane chia goya la chikzuwa doda zundushira mohoye doji. Ni yang shawash ya bukashe la komba mezansra ya zundushiru begoya doji. 소만지 지겨라서 어디 직듯이 잡던데.
하나도 레로 너무 숨쉬어라. 나 전주기 독서로 전주기 니모 템비서를 스팅이 제가. 근데 레로들 안에 다니는 이비들 정확히 시지에도 예지비도 손샤라. 너무 디스미지는
So then in Buddhism we talk about there being three types of laziness. The first one is a form of self-pity, wherein you begin to feel a sense of inadequacy about your own capabilities and about who you are. So this is also understood to be a form of laziness, what we call in modern terms self-pity. And then another one is the laziness of procrastination, wherein we begin to keep pushing off things that we should do right now. And then the other one is the laziness of engaging in meaningless things at the expense of the pursuit of spirituality. That's
나는 저기 다니는 이비들로 어디 간데들 샤보라나. 사실 저기 나 유리 말에 나 두고 말에도 소소소로 막 돈주로 시다. 그래. 이때 거 같은 거. 근데 점점 들리다. 근데 내가 아니 다니는 이비들 샤보라. 얘 두고 말에 정말 내가 쳐나서 말에 비까지 애들 시리도. 소소야 버버도잖아. 같은 거. 그냥 가지고 그걸 가리에 방가리에 있는데 되게 버버도 저는
So then the first of these forms of laziness, which is this self-pity or this sense of inadequacy one feels about one's own capacity or ability, wherein you begin to say that I can never do this, I am not capable of doing this at all, and you're immediately stopping yourself from putting in the effort that is required to achieve something. So it's important at that point to realize that the mind has become a little bit too depressed. So so it makes sense to kind of uplift the mind a little bit by developing a sense of confidence in who you are and your abilities. By thinking that I am a human being too, other human beings even in worse situation than myself have been able to pull themselves together. So I am indeed capable of doing this or achieving this.
아니 자왕 인식이 되는 제일 공도 이제 슈트도 지금 백이 저와지어라 저와야 부터 대샤니라 한번 부자지요 뭔가 뒤치셔 이 사람가 뒤치셔 이게 신이라 저와 신발들에 놓고 저와 신발들 그거도 줘야 믿어라 거의 저와가 줘야 믿어라 근데 이제는 얘는 뭐 답변이 왜 예, 아니 로 지고라 다다가디 내가 사는 주지 띠띵가 사는 주지 근데 근데서 저와 신발들에 근데 로기 오자 가만히 지금 로 광고에 무서워자 아니 지금 제가 도고는 제마도 와 아니 지금 가만히 주들들 되게 힘이나고 제고는 빨리 가보려다 근데 지금 되지 마상 너무 지려온가 뭐도 되지 근데 그런 자원이 생기더라 자원이 받아 신이 자원이 아무도 좀 못해
So then the second form of laziness is the laziness of engaging in meaningless activities at the expense of doing something wholesome. So then the world is full of distractions, and the worldly things are distractions. Running after worldly things are distractions, distraction from actually pushing ourselves to engage in the study, practice, and contemplation of the Dharma. So then we always do this, like saying that I will like maybe do these things, and then maybe when it comes to like study, or when it comes to meditate, when it comes to studying, or when it comes to meditating, or when it comes to practicing, then we have the tendency to say that maybe I'll do these things first. Maybe I'll go out for a bit, meet my friends. Maybe I'll watch some movies first. After this, then I'll like meditate then. And when you do this on a regular basis, then days turn into months, months turn into years. And one day you wake up and you realize that you're old and your sense faculties are not so sharp anymore, and you do not have a teacher in front of you anymore who can like motivate you to do so as you were when you were young. And then you realize that you have dedicated your life towards meaningless things rather than the pursuit of spirituality. This is the laziness of engaging in meaningless things at the expense of the pursuit of spirituality.
I think also what adds to the sense of urgency is that right now we have optimal bodies, and once that begins to degrade and degenerate, that pursuit becomes all the more difficult.
남자도 직도 고르스라 밀래드나 가진 단답값을 왜 수부디 랑소에 줘라 아니 디스 세다 덴벨 루부지로 왔단다 슈슈고 좀봐 가르치나에 제로마로 줘라서 첨부차 야가나 니 블로깅 좀 수부디 아니마로 되게 말아왔어 디도 좀 봐니 파직 지야로는 슈 저와도 단 준비 슈 채워라서 디스 내가 망아로 지르스 디도 좀 봐. So yes, what could be so easy right now would be something very difficult when you're old. So then maybe we can think about examples about how we begin to engage and busy ourselves with meaningless tasks at the expense of rather than doing something we should really be doing. So maybe we can think of examples and share it with the group. Then we can maybe get an idea about what is laziness and are we lazy people or not.
For me, it's constant movement. I don't do social media, but I think for me it's just the choice of lifestyle prevents me from building equity and building value. I guess I'm talking more of worldly pursuits at this point, but also the lack of routine also keeps me away from don't apply myself as much as I could. I could apply myself more if I had that time.
Due to the fact that you are traveling around so much.
Yes, you are.
But that's your life pursuit, isn't it? To travel?
Not necessarily. I don't know if it's a pursuit anymore because it seems to be never ending, you know?
It's a pursuit after experiences, different experiences.
Yes, and I guess, you know, what I find interesting is that as your mind matures and gets older, it's easier to ground, you know, but the youthful body is a perfect temple for the practice. And so, you know, it's just like you're always battling with this irony where, you know, you feel like your mind is now, you know, a little bit easier to control with the anger, with the monkey mind.
But the body?
Yes, but then the body is aging, right? And it's not behaving.
그런 딜라이트 그런 남주님의 제단지라 사지직도 받속도 되는 데 있지메스 야마 마망골 꼬라져 참되는 지스라 야마 듬지체 되는 지스 그 듬지체 거에 좀센데다 냠냠사와 사자도 사와 동아에 이사와 토에 되도록 시더라스 근데 야마 참되는 zamban에다 벳 니마직 된데 도그레 라이죠 말아 디주로지 제자니 냠내치에 고갑래로 냠내치에 투줄에 템포지요 말아서 가진 가드니 참 되게 그러서 제자 어떻게 그럼 단단한 저완이 신기를 해야 돼 되지 무슨 지게서 그러는 거잖아 니도 그런 게 신다 딜레이트 저도 아마 좀 뒤치되디 누가 지다 지게 말했으라 이내다 냠내 지에게 걸어 삼는 땅나스라 근데 디 아버지다 말도스 가자는 냠냠 망고지 싸기를 했으라 냠냠 망고 싸냐니 로로 정다로 어쨌든 대지유지랬어 이내 판 냠내 지에지 고갑라이면도스라 지금 공제 배터보다 되게 쉬우라이면도스 로종 지에도 고갑라이면도스 아니 다 되게 삼대 좀 봐디 다 메진은 다 카슈도 다가랑데도스라 로디 셈바지오라 셈바디다 삼노당나 디야제토라 다가스 다 퀄리티 삼노 템발라지오라 되게 차이는 수부디야 맞아오지 차로다스 제자니 단다 수부디다 거와 먼저 레스로 말하더라 수부 거와다 표시 동나야스라 땅초조로 오지라스 제자 cấp 단다는 냠렌직다 수수기 체도나 배 상보야 보통도스
세상 문제들 다 단단한 저 배신은 거 있으면 다라고 이제 당도 지나게 말아서 최고니 지구의 상담하는 거는 내가 또 당보다 치워 치에 있더라 나베기 중심을 따라 치에 치도가 타지 아 치도 잠발에 나도 최마도 주문은 이제 방학비에 시간 태우다 되게 먼저 급하게 해라 이거 아니 쉬어도 계셔보여 쉬어마도 지나게 라 근데 내 하고 취지지고가 타지 라 취지와라 아무 세대 답을 인자 가디가디 시기에 나도 우체문이 왔다는 야내 유비하고 봐 근데 이 취지는 아다니 치고 근데 있으면 당연히 이 전류랑 시기를 보더라 이제로 좀 하고 있습니다.
So yes, as you come to this realization, then from the Buddhist perspective, one is encouraged to think about developing the sense of urgency to practice, or to cultivate your practice. And in Buddhism, when you hear things about things like impermanence and so forth, in reality, we need to try to relate it to ourselves. We have to come to a full acceptance and understanding that we will die. This is the best reminder that things are impermanent when we begin to know that we ourselves will one day die. So when we say that you have to come to that acceptance first, that we will die. So at the moment of death, will you be able to carry, will any of these material possessions that you have acquired help you? No, it wouldn't help you. With all these different experiences that you have gained, will they help you? No, it wouldn't really help you. And what will really help you? What will really help you in that moment of death is your practice, is your contemplation on the nature of reality itself. And so, this is a very narrow way of looking at it. and then you can extend it towards like next life, wherein like what you carry in your next life is not anything from this life, not anything material from this life. What you carry in your next life is your Dharma practice in your next life. So this is the way in which a practitioner should always be reminded of the importance of a sense of urgency to cultivate practice, to come to acceptance that we will die first. And so at that moment of death, what will really help you?
아니 다다 나서 제 단위를 가서 자원이 시기를 좀 되게 좀 나오더라. 아무튼 가봐들이라. 그래서 쓰레기는 가봐들지 이게 다다 하지. 봐. 제가 다니 가서 다디 잠깐 심이 주도로 책을 비까지 파하지 가. 잠깐 럽쳐 내야죠. 내가 지금 내가 지금 내가 스스로 럽쳐라야 되죠. 정말 탈지를 두어야 되죠.
So then, one of the best examples of this engaging in meaningless task or engaging in meaningless pursuits rather than the pursuit of spirituality is now in this day and age. What do we really do when, like, the first moment we get up from bed? I think everyone reaches there for their phone immediately when they wake up. So when you do that, what are you really doing? Like, you're poking your nose in someone's business. You are like, I'm not saying that this social media thing is a bad thing in itself, because there are things that are helpful there. But then, like, when it becomes a habit that is not mindful, then, like, basically we're just poking our nose like in other people's business most of the time. Then we begin to comment unsolicited advices and so on and so forth. So it's just a meaningless task. So I think from this example you begin to understand like how engaging in meaningless pursuits builds a habit out of something that is also positive.
By the way, just about reaching the phone.
Mm-hmm.
So it increased the dopamine level
Mm-hmm.
in the brain,
Mm-hmm.
and it imbalanced our nervous system because we do it first thing in the morning. And since I read it, I no longer do it. And actually the first thing I do when I wake up is meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So don't look at the phone first thing in the morning. It's really bad.
네, 당당해서 가봐야 돼. 검시 잘해줘라. 자고의 중생 가르려나 모란기다 최선 로질로 있어라. 고속이 냠식이 좀 되려라. 니는 가르치려나 가봐야 이제 봐 배주당도 되서 봐야라. 아니 레바논의 도파민은 제지요레스. 제디기 나서다 세리토닌 시나라. 대화기 용어치 되요레스. 아니 가봐가 되카시나 제디기 말려기도. 제자는 검시 차기요레스 나서라. 아니 또 제디 있는 아주 ramshin ile goya chiris mone china chik nedang ro chin ile goya chiris ta khabadi da namju la ba yedera mi tunjo jira wo digi chembe ni subu nonglo la ma zu zegi da jacha ba jira chanyum de jira zegi chanyum namju di tubyo res ko jezan jen ma dewa sorge do as khabon go da na jezan da di jezum de ton ne da di da yo di pendo bo ji mardo le ne mo de san shoge la da khabato tagimis zamshayız. Gomjagi 있습니다.
그도 예, 가시는 때기도 그거지. 아빠들은 그거를 대로 오시잖아요. 그거 몇 그거 이 때문 따다니. 대부터는 그런 지혜가 있다. 그래서 그런 거다. 이제는 수송 랍제티가 나오더라. 근데 지혜 먼저 버리는 거. 그것이 무슨 몇 있는 줄이 있어. 때는 딱 봐도 됐어. 가시니 군에 이제 지혜 있어요. 너. 저도 이 쇼이 있는 지혜야.
So then, this highlights the point that if we build a habit out of mindlessness, without mindfulness, and then the dangers of such habits being built. For example, I've seen children who have become addicted to this scrolling and all that thing. When they are given a book, then they begin to scroll. And then some child also, I've heard that they begin to scroll in their sleep too. So this is the danger, like as a society, what message are we really sending at this point?
이네 나도 미 신주 뭐야. 지단게 팬 마토라 타짓 라야 마다 팬도가 먼저 미들이 계시오나 그거 시에요. 이게로 파스 땅으로 이체도 가르조는 내 높이도 대군의 고야를 빼야 버리다. 수수기 세대 대바지시나 팬도 좀 이마이나 나도 미치게 당하고 사바니 로도가 와 잘라지지 파스 이기로 땅으로 다가는 로베 스탠다지 뭐부치고 그래서 무슨 같은 거지요. 무슨 건데요? 그냥 사실 그래도 그걸 문제를 내는다 또. 이 비주 따님 거라기 세 그래서 아니 남자 디선 찾아나면 최시에 찾아나면 납전에 파는 서비스 너무 제일 무인의 디선 파서 땅 주고 봐. 이마이는 지금 예초로 미죠 가져가도 지금 무한지 땅하고 그래서 그래서 다 자제 그거라. 봐. 솔직히 다기도 부자라요. 나도 비주 땅다 저에게서 아니
So herein, this is not to say that we should we should not appreciate the utility of these technologies, because the utility of the technology is something remarkable. For example, in the olden days, like if you have to call someone, you have to walk like a kilometer to call someone. Now we can just call them at the push of a button. And in the old days, if we had to, this is not even that old, like maybe 10, 15 years ago. If you want to send some money, you have to go to the bank. You have to give someone money. Now you can just do all that with the push of a button. And now in the old days, like if you want to attend a teaching, you have to physically come to some faraway country to receive teachings. Now you can receive them through the internet. And you don't have to be there on the day the teaching is being given. So there is use. The technology itself is something remarkable. But then when this invades and this begins to encroach in our like real life interaction, and then if we are not careful, then it becomes something very negative for society as a whole. That's
저는 같이 부자지냐는 손이도 두칼이 쉬죠.
So then the people who really put in an effort to build this technology might be really angry if we say that this technology is in itself something not something negative, if we say that, because they really like